They tell you overthinking means you're intelligent, that caring too much is a virtue, that worrying is just preparation, but let me hook you with the truth I learned the hard way: overthinking almost killed the woman I was, and living saved the woman I became. I stand here today not as someone who figured life out early, but as someone who spent years trapped inside her own mind, replaying conversations that were already dead, imagining futures that never arrived, and questioning her worth in silence while smiling in public. I was the woman who analyzed every text, doubted every decision, feared every risk, and postponed happiness because I was waiting for the right time. My mind was loud, relentless, and cruel. It convinced me that if I thought enough, planned enough, worried enough, I could control pain, failure, and heartbreak. But all I controlled was my own imprisonment. I lived in my head while life passed me by in real time. I missed moments because I was busy predicting endings. I sabotaged opportunities because I was afraid of making the wrong choice. I carried guilt for things I couldn't change and fear for things that hadn't even happened yet. And one day, exhausted and empty, I realized something terrifying: I wasn't living, I was surviving my own thoughts. That was the day everything cracked open. Not because life suddenly got easier, but because I finally got tired of betraying myself. I understood that overthinking wasn't protecting me, it was punishing me. It wasn't wisdom, it was fear wearing a smart disguise. So I made a quiet but radical decision. To stop asking, what if everything goes wrong, and start asking, what if I finally live? I didn't wake up fearless, I woke up honest. Honest about how much I had already lost by waiting. Honest about how much pain I had endured just by staying stuck. And in that honesty, something powerful ignited inside me. I chose action over analysis, presence over prediction, courage over comfort. I let go of the need to control outcomes and held on to the need to feel alive. I stopped overthinking not because my mind went silent, but because my soul finally spoke louder. When I stopped overthinking, life didn't magically become perfect, but it became real, raw, and mine. I started showing up even when my hands were shaking, started choosing myself even when my voice trembled, started saying yes to moments without knowing how they would end. I learned that clarity doesn't come from thinking more, it comes from moving forward. Every step I took, imperfect, messy, uncertain, gave me more confidence than years of silent planning ever did. I began to trust life instead of interrogating it. I allowed myself to fail, to feel, to fall, because I finally understood that pain is not the enemy, paralysis is. I stopped waiting to be healed before living and realized living was the healing. I laughed without guilt, rested without explaining, dreamed without apologizing. I stopped shrinking myself to fit the expectations of a mind that was trained by fear. I replaced self-doubt with self-respect, and suddenly decisions became lighter, days became brighter, and my heart felt free. I learned that not every thought deserves attention, not every fear deserves power, and not every path needs approval. Life rewarded my courage with lessons, not guarantees, and that was enough. Because for the first time I wasn't asking life to promise me safety, I was promising myself presence. And that changed everything. I stopped being a spectator of my own story and became the woman who writes it boldly, bravely, and unapologetically. I am no longer defined by the chaos in my mind but by the fire in my soul. I didn't find peace by controlling life, I found it by participating in it. And if there's one truth I want you to carry with you, it's this. The moment you stop overthinking is the moment you start trusting yourself, and that is the moment life finally begins. Now when my mind tries to drag me back into old patterns, I smile, because I know that voice, and I no longer obey it. I've learned that peace isn't the absence of noise, it's the decision to not let the noise drive. I live from my heart now, not my fears. I choose progress over perfection, meaning over approval, truth over comfort. I understand that life is not a puzzle to be solved but an experience to be felt. Some days I still feel uncertain, but uncertainty no longer scares me. It excites me, because it means I'm growing. I stopped asking for permission to be happy. I stopped waiting for validation to feel worthy. I stopped delaying my dreams just because the path wasn't clear. And in that surrender, I found strength. I found myself. I became the woman who trusts her instincts, who honors her timing, who moves even when clarity hasn't fully arrived. Because I now know this, confidence is built after action, not before it. Freedom is claimed, not granted. Life doesn't reward those who think the most, it rewards those who dare the most. So if you're listening to me right now, trapped in your own mind, exhausted by your own thoughts, let this be your wake-up call. You don't need another sign. You don't need more time. You need courage. Choose to live before life forces you to realize you've been waiting too long. Stop overthinking. Start living. The world is waiting for the version of you who finally shows up. Let me tell you what happens when you finally choose living over overthinking. It feels like standing in the sun after years of hiding in the shadows of your own mind. You begin to notice how heavy your thoughts once were, how they chained you to hesitation, how they convinced you that safety was more important than joy. I realized I had spent so much time preparing for life that I forgot to actually live it. So I broke the pattern. I allowed myself to be seen without being perfect. I allowed my heart to lead even when logic begged me to retreat. I stopped rehearsing conversations and started having them. I stopped waiting for the fear to disappear and walked forward with it beside me. And something extraordinary happened. The fear lost its power the moment I stopped treating it like a master and started treating it like a passing emotion. I discovered that the version of me I was so afraid to become was actually the version I had been waiting for. Each day I chose action, my world expanded. Each time I trusted myself, my confidence deepened. I learned that happiness is not a destination you reach after everything is figured out, it's a decision you make in the middle of uncertainty. I embraced mistakes as proof of movement, not failure. I embraced silence as rest, not avoidance. I embraced change as growth, not loss. Life started responding to me differently, not because it changed, but because I did. I no longer begged for certainty, I created meaning. I no longer measured my worth by outcomes, I measured it by courage. And in that shift, I found freedom. Freedom to dream without limits, to love without fear, to exist without apology. I became fully alive the moment I stopped trying to control every outcome and started trusting my inner strength. This is what living feels like: messy, beautiful, unpredictable, and real. And I promise you, once you taste this kind of freedom, you will never willingly return to the prison of overthinking again. And now, standing here in this version of myself, I finally understand what I was searching for all along. It was never certainty, it was courage. Courage to wake up and choose myself daily. Courage to live loudly in a world that taught me to be careful. Courage to trust that even if everything falls apart, I will rise stronger than before. Overthinking once convinced me that life was something to be feared, managed, and postponed, but living taught me that life is something to be felt, risked, and honored. I no longer chase perfection because I've seen how much beauty lives in imperfection. I no longer fear endings because I've learned they make room for beginnings. I stopped measuring my life by timelines, comparisons, and expectations, and started measuring it by how deeply I breathe, how freely I love, and how honestly I show up. I allow myself to feel joy without questioning it, pain without drowning in it, and uncertainty without resisting it. I finally gave myself permission to exist without constantly explaining, fixing, or proving myself. And in that permission, I found peace. I found power. I found a version of me that doesn't just survive days but claims them. I don't wait anymore, I move. I don't hide anymore, I express. I don't shrink anymore, I expand. Because I know now that life doesn't begin when fear ends, life begins when bravery speaks louder than fear. This is not just my story, it's an invitation. An invitation to release the weight you were never meant to carry. An invitation to trust your instincts, honor your desires, and step into the life that has been waiting for you while you were busy thinking about it. Stop overthinking your worth. Stop overthinking your timing. Stop overthinking your power. You are already enough. You are already ready. And the moment you decide to live, fully, fiercely, and unapologetically, everything you've been searching for will finally start meeting you where you stand. There was a time I believed life would begin after I fixed myself, after I healed completely, after I became fearless, flawless, and fully prepared, but now I know that belief was the very thing keeping me stuck. Living taught me that you don't arrive whole and then begin, you begin, and wholeness meets you along the way. I stopped treating my life like a draft that needed endless revisions and started treating it like a masterpiece in motion. I allowed myself to be unfinished and still worthy. I allowed myself to be scared and still bold. I allowed myself to be human and still powerful. Overthinking had trained me to delay joy, to question my instincts, to doubt my inner voice, but living retrained me to trust myself again. I learned that intuition is louder than logic when you finally give it space. I learned that the heart knows paths the mind will never understand. And with every brave choice, every leap without guarantees, I reclaimed pieces of myself I didn't even realize I had abandoned. I began to feel deeply without apologizing. I began to dream wildly without shrinking those dreams to fit other people's comfort. I began to move through life with intention instead of hesitation. I stopped asking life to prove itself to me and started proving to myself that I could handle whatever came next. That shift changed everything. I became resilient, not because life got easier, but because I stopped running from its uncertainty. I embraced the unknown as a canvas instead of a threat. I trusted that even my worst days were shaping me into someone stronger, wiser, and more alive than I had ever been. This is the power of choosing life. It teaches you that you are not fragile, you are forged. You are not lost, you are becoming. You are not late, you are right on time for the life that requires your courage. And once you realize that, you don't just live, you rise. To every woman listening to me now, this is my truth for you: stop waiting for permission to live. You don't need to have it all figured out to take the next step. Trust your instincts, even when your mind is loud. Choose courage over comfort, action over fear, and presence over perfection. Let go of the need to control everything and hold on to the power of believing in yourself. Life is not asking you to be fearless, it's asking you to be brave. Start where you are. Move with what you have. And remember, the moment you stop overthinking is the moment you finally begin to live.